після ударів.
And I'm moving ahead now. U.S. President Donald Trump has called Alex Pretti, who was shot dead by federal agents in Minneapolis last week, an agitator and possibly an insurrectionist. President Trump made these comments after a video was released showing the man, Alex Pretti, scuffling with federal agents before the incident. However, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey has described the ICE operations in the city as an invasion of democracy. Frey has said that the deaths of 2 U.S. citizens during confrontations with federal agents represented a threat to the whole of the United States. Meanwhile, after Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, announced possible withdrawal of some federal agents from Minneapolis, residents in the city reacted. Let's listen in to them.
There is a sense that he's a bit more moderating in his views, which is a good sign. But will he carry it through? Will ICE actually stop behaving the way that they have? It is very, very doubtful that they will, given the circumstances that are taking place in the wider context of the policies that are being pursued by the Trump administration to exploit the immigration issues in this country.
After all of this, it's a very little thing to say for everything that's happened, and to say that we're going to de-escalate this a little bit is a little bit of a slap in the face to like people that have died for this cause.
I hope that we all understand that the situation is serious, what has happened. We do not want this happen again. We have lost 2 lives, and I hope that we all come to some agreement that enough is enough and we should stop. And deportation has happened all for decades, for before too. So there's a process for that. If we do by due process, it's acceptable to everybody, but the current process is certainly not acceptable to anyone.
And Professor Wesleyan Popovsky, Vice Dean of the Jindal Global Law School, joins me in the discussion. He's joining from Thailand right now. Professor, thanks very much for joining in. Border czar is there. He's saying ICE is not going to stop its operations. There's clearly no backing down, even though Trump had signaled that there was going to be some retreat. But then the border czar came out and issued that statement. And now Trump again is calling Alex Pretti an insurrectionist. He was a U.S. citizen serving as an ICU nurse. What does Trump, really have proof to say that he was an insurrectionist just based on the fact that he was scuffling right before he was actually killed?
Yes, it's an unfortunate development. And the tactics is to blame the victim as to kind of justify the action of his enforcement agencies. So basically, he doesn't want to give up. He wants to play on the domestic audience, on the Republican support he still has. He doesn't at all respect the law, and that's Donald Trump. All he is interested in is to look strong, and that's why he cannot back up, because backing up means he doesn't look strong, he looks weak. And the only way forward is more protests. In fact, when there are more protests, when people clearly are united against the violence committed by the ICE agents, it will lead at one point to backing down. You cannot do against people anything, and that's what in democracies usually happen. You can do a lot against people in Iran, in Russia, in North Korea, but in a country with 250 years of democracy like United States, at some point, every authority, no matter how brutal and dictatorial it is, like Donald Trump, needs to face the institutions, the laws, the judges, the public opinion, the civil society. So one way or another, it cannot be solved against the will of the people here. So Minneapolis was a peaceful city a year ago, before Donald Trump launched this ridiculous, brutal, anti-human campaign against immigrants. And yes, more he escalates, more people will protest and revolt. And obviously, it's usually the way to reverse the cause and the effect. The cause is the violence by the federal agencies, and the effect are people protesting against violence. But now they want to say people are violent and not the federal agency, which is exactly the opposite. So reversing the cause and effect, lying and manipulating, that's what Donald Trump always does.
Professor, why is it that only Minneapolis is being targeted by ICE? Are all the illegal immigrants in the United States only in Minnesota, which is a Democratic stronghold? Why are we seeing all these reports of killings only from Minneapolis?
You answered it already, saying it's a Democratic stronghold. But it's a political fight against the Democrats. And there is no such thing in any state where Republicans are in power. So very clearly it is another political divisive game against Minnesota. And well, there are a large number of immigrants in Minnesota, and they decided to go there and to show power and strength and brutality in a state which is run by Democrats. And also, finally, they tried to dig back in the year 2000 and find some fraud committed by the authorities in Minnesota. All this kind of blaming the state and blaming the people and blaming the local authorities as to justify violence, as to justify killing of people. And that's even more notorious and unacceptable, and it doesn't lead anywhere. So once and again, we see a very incompetent administration and impotent, because they cannot achieve anything without brutality. Brutality doesn't bring anything here. It only escalates. It only makes it on the first page of the news. All these statements do not help Donald Trump long-term whatsoever. There is no problem with immigration, by the way. It is a created story. It's a fantasy that Donald Trump created to win the elections, to scare people with immigrants, which actually doesn't make any problem in any country. Well, there are maybe some of those
Professor, there's some breaking news updates that are coming in from Iran. Do stay on with us. Viewers,